Hey everyone, thank you for giving my channel a little chance. We will have a great time today looking at very interesting biblical topics concerning David and his wife, Michal. Specifically, if Michal's sin against her husband David was really that bad. So, the sin we're talking about is in 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 12 to 23, where King David of Israel took the Ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom and moved it to his own city, the city of David. There was singing and dancing, especially from David, who was wearing a linen ephod. But Michal, his wife, saw all these festivities and didn't join them, and also only had this to say when it was all over. How glorious was the king of Israel today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovered himself. Now, this was kind of a wild thing to say to the king of Israel, but the punishment, stated in verse 23, was that she was made barren. She couldn't have any kids for him. Was this punishment anywhere near worth the crime? Well, yes. Well, for starters, Michal was envious of David. David was doing so well, his kingdom was prospering, and he was displaying how good that felt in front of the entire nation. Some people just can't handle that. Let's go back further in the past, to Genesis chapter 37, verses 3 to 4, where we can see this happen again with Joseph and his brothers. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. Now, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Later on, these same brethren planned to kill Joseph, but eventually, ever so graciously, settled on selling him instead. Now, Michal had that same spirit of envy, and God won't take such a thing lightly, especially since it concerns someone who loved God very dearly and worshipped him with his whole heart, as God personally testified to in 1 Kings 3:14. And we know for sure that Michal envied David because of the way verse 16 of 2 Samuel 6 was framed. And that verse states, "And as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart." The verse never mentioned any part of her excuse that he was dancing scantily clad. It was all about envy, and it's quite the shame that something as important as the Ark of God being brought into the city could be looked down upon because of something like that. It just goes to show that Michal was a certain type of person, a natural person. And what is that? Well, a natural person is someone who just doesn't understand the significance of God, his laws, his principles, and everything about him really, according to Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 2:14. And that was exactly who Michal was. And so, since Michal didn't respect God, and also envied David, a dedicated servant of God, she got that punishment. But that wasn't all. We also have to remember the power dynamic here. Let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3 to get a hint of what I'm getting at. "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God." So David here was Michal's head, and so she had no right to be talking to him that way. Michal was not the only person punished for disrespect, but also Miriam, Moses' sister, in Numbers chapter 12, who criticized Moses for marrying an Ethiopian woman. Miriam had no right to do such a thing, so she was punished by getting leprosy for 7 days. This is also why Michal was punished for speaking against David, especially since he was just celebrating God. So essentially, Michal's sin against David was pretty bad. She not only envied him and didn't value God that much, but also literally insulted her husband, a big no-no. And since we know of these events, it's now our job to not repeat their mistakes. But that is the end of this video on if Michal's sin against David was that bad. And it was that bad. If you like this kind of content and want to see more of it, well, there's plenty of videos on my channel. And to support me, you can also hit that like button, the subscribe button, and maybe, if you're feeling a little extra generous, that notification bell, so you'll be notified of when I post again. Have a great day, and I'd love to see all of you soon.